Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 355 of the Running For Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here and excited for this episode. While I have caught up with this guest in between the last time I recorded an episode and today, it has been a while since we've talked on the phone. We tend to just exchange voice memos. So I am excited to dig into some of the things that she has been up to since the last time that she was on the podcast. And I think this is her third time returning to the podcast. You can go back and listen to previous episodes if you have missed those ones and want to check those out. We went into some interesting topics in those ones and we went a lot deeper than at the time she used to go. She talks a lot more now on her podcast with Des, which, yes, we did talk about in the podcast Nobody Asked Us. And today I am excited to welcome back Kara Goucher. She was the 10,000 meter silver medalist at the 2007 World Championship. She's represented US in the 2008 Beijing Olympics and the 2012 Olympics. She is known for her running accolades, but also known for just being her bravery, her courage in speaking up and speaking out about many different things, but in particular about her treatment when she was at the Nike Oregon project. And while I knew some of the information, not all of it by any stretch of the imagination, I knew little chunks of things. It was a real eye-opener for me to read her book, The Longest Race, which, by the way, is now a New York Times bestseller. And we go into her book, how it feels to be out there, how she handles things as it is out there, and the extent to which she shared. We also talked about her dystonia, which has been holding her back in her running currently. And we also get to talk about the podcast and a little bit at the end about Colt and how hard it is for her having a son who is engaged in running and loves running, and how she handles that with her and Adam's past. So without any further ado, let's get to this episode with Kara Goucher. Thank you to Dry Seats for sponsoring this episode of the Running For Real podcast. Now, I have been using sweatproof seat covers for many years. It was something that Steve got me as a gift, a birthday gift, about 10 years ago. And I just realized how much better it is than having to just try and stuff a towel in there after your run. It not really work. You get it soaked through anyway, and just makes a big stinky car. And so I love that these sweatproof seat covers work so well. And now I'm even more excited that I have found one from Dry Seats that gives me the simple protection that works. You can install and remove it in seconds. This slip-resistant backing keeps it in place so it won't scratch, scuff, or stain or discolor your seats. It's easy to use. You're just going to put it on in a few seconds. It's going to go on all cars. They do have a larger version for those of you who do have big trucks. And yeah, it means you don't have to use those sweaty, gross towels that don't actually work that well anyway. The products are made without using neoprene, which I didn't need to explain that to you, but it's just not something that works particularly well, but it's what a lot of brands tend to use. These dry seats are thin, light, they're not bulky like towels, they're washable, they won't stain. They are just ideal for post-run, especially as we have the summer coming up. They do also have seatbelt covers available, so you can go to DRI-SEATS, that's dry-seats.com, and if you use code R4R20, you will get 20% off your first order. Hassle-free shipping, you get free returns, not that I think you will need it, but go to dry-seats.com and use code R4R20 to get 20% off your first order. This is ideal for runners. These are waterproof, easy to use, well worth it for runners, and even though I was annoyed at Steve when he first bought me a sweatproof seat cover, it really has been something I have really valued, and I can't imagine my life without it in the summer. So go check it out. Go to dri-seats.com. Use code R4R20 to get 20% off. Your name is hard for me.
That's okay.
I hope I'm not the only British person who says Kara, because I feel like I just can't. Okay, good.
And also a lot of people call me Kara that don't have a British accent, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Kara. I can say it, but it just sounds weird. Kara. Does that
it
sound
sounds more sophisticated when you say it with your accent anyway.
Okay, let me say welcome, and I'll just try and say it. Okay, ready?
Okay.
I can't even do it. Kara? Okay, let me try. I gotta get serious. Kara, welcome back. I can't do it. Kara, welcome back to the Running Thrill podcast.
It's fine.
Kara, welcome back to the Running Thrill podcast. I'm sweating now. This is stressing me out. I'm excited you're here. My friend, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be chatting with you again. And I never want you to be stressed out about saying my name wrong because everybody pronounces it differently. And I know that they're talking to me, so don't worry about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's all right. I should have sat there this morning like practicing, but I didn't. And now it's stressful. Okay, I can take a breath. I have to ask you a question for my editor. He's been dying to know this every time I've interviewed you, but I've never asked. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Crunchy.
I
like the crunch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I don't really care either way, but he feels like this is a good personality determinator. What would be the word? Personality. I don't know. It sorts people. That's what he's interested in. So, okay, I've asked that question for him. Now I can get on with my own selfish questions. So I told you before that I was going to make this just, you and I are friends. I don't really want to make this into a proper interview, but just like us catching up. And while we've sent a few voice memos back and forth, we haven't had a proper chat in, it's probably been a year at least. So we do have a lot to go over. There are so many things I could ask you about. But I want to begin with, I think the thing that will be, there's two things I think that will be on most people's minds, but I think the podcast with Des is probably the big one that many people listening are probably very interested in. And you clearly are both of you starting to relax into it, starting to enjoy it. And I've not listened, but I've heard a lot of positive about the Trey Hardy episode, just in terms of the conversation there and what it meant to you. But I'd just love to hear what has it been like getting to know Des and become, I don't know if you would consider each other friends, maybe like kind of outer friends before, but getting to know someone who had all these like aligning memories and things that you were doing at the same time, but kind of in your own bubbles. What has that been like, kind of going back and filling in the pieces as you've really got to know her now?
It's been really great. It makes me look back and wish that we had, talked sooner. I think every time we saw each other at races or appearances, we were always kind to each other. I will say, like, she's one person that's always treated me with respect, which I can't say about everyone else that I've, had to deal with over the years. And I always kind of liked her. I thought she was kind of funny. She'd like always make funny comments, but we weren't like going to dinner together and hanging out or anything like that. It was just like we'd see each other in these snippets. So I think the first time that we really truly hung out together was in 2020 at the Olympic trials. I had been at a Wazelle event and she had been out doing her own thing. And we both kind of stumbled into the lobby around midnight. And I don't remember who said it, but we ended up being like, yeah, let's go get a beer. So we hung out till like 2 a.m. And then I got up the next morning to meet her for a run. And so I felt like that's when it started to shift from someone I like and respect to someone like I like, like she's funny and she has a lot to say and she's interesting. And so that was kind of it. And then we would just, kind of like you and I just text each other here and there, whatever. And then she came to Boulder in the fall of 2022 and we met at a coffee shop. We were just going to meet for like an hour. And, a few hours later, it was like, I just enjoyed talking to her. And so the podcast, we thought, well, let's just, let's start a podcast. We'll make 3 episodes and we'll just talk. And if nobody listens to it, then it's like, who cares? No harm, no foul. But if people listen to it, maybe we could take it somewhere. And so we had released those 3 episodes, I think in January. And it was kind of nuts, how many people listened to it. So then it was like, oh, I guess we should continue. So episode 13 actually just came out today. I just got the text that it's up and live. I feel like I've just gotten to know her better and better. And it's interesting. We are different, but I think a lot of our core values are the same. So I've found that I like her even more than I thought I liked her, so it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
I want to ask you more about that in a second. But first, I want to ask you, as we both have our mutual friend, Chris, who is your producer, how did you text him and say, hey, I want to make a podcast with Des? Or I'm just dying to know, and most people aren't going to care about this. This is a selfish question. I'm just dying to know how that conversation went down, because I would have loved to have been a part of it.
Yeah, it was like Des Linden and I are thinking about starting a podcast. Like, how would we do that? Because I worked with Chris on Clean Sport Collective, and he did everything. Like, I just showed up and talked to people, and he did all the editing. So he emailed me back and was like, if you guys are serious about this, I think you should get better equipment, and I would be happy to edit for you guys. And I was like, okay. So there would be no podcast without him, because neither of us know how to, like, you're sending me this link and I don't know what you're going to do with it, because I don't know what that looks like, because I don't ever do it. So he has been so helpful. And for us, we are like trying to figure out a way where we can be compensating him, but he is such a good guy. He's like, oh, I'll just do it because I like it, but that's not fair because it is a lot of work. So basically, I just told Chris that we were thinking about doing it. And the next thing you know, he was telling us what equipment to get. And then he was telling over Christmas, he's like, we need like music. You guys need to like figure out what music you like. So, I mean, he really pushed us to make it professional. Yeah.
I love that. And Chris has his own podcast. I'll put a link in the show notes, although now I'm feeling like a bad friend. Is it Running Rogue or Rogue Running?
Well, that's a great question, because I never remember. I think it's Running Rogue, but I don't know. It's either Running Rogue or Rogue Running. And it's a great podcast. He interviews a lot of really cool people. But
yes. So I'll put a link in the show notes. Bad friends. Sorry, Chris. Okay, so back to the actual what I wanted to ask you about. Do you think would your friendship with her ever have occurred? Like, let's say this happened in 2015. Do you think there was something about like your maturity level, or your like kind of working your way towards the tail end of your career, that allowed it to happen? Or do you think that could have had the potential to happen had you been at the peak?
I don't know. I think that Des is the kind of person that we could have done it. But I also think we both are at just different stages of our life. Like, I don't think I would have done it at the peak of my career, because I was like focused on training and all that. I didn't have room in my world for something extra that wasn't family related, basically. So I think timing is kind of everything in life. And it was just a good, basically we met and we talked and we're like, we wish we could talk about these things in the open. But I definitely wasn't at a place where I was confident in my thoughts and my opinions in 2015. So I think it needed to be later. And I think it is a little easier I'm not ever going to race again at any capacity. Definitely not anything serious. She is still racing, but also her career is, she's such a great racer. I would never count her out, but like probably her days to PR are behind her. So I think we're just both a little bit, like you said, like the maturity and our age, it's just at a different stage. And it's like, well, what can we do together that's cool and fun that, maybe before we would have been like, who's concerned with whose name is first or this or that, or, all those kinds of things. And she was like, well, whose name should come first? And I'm like, we don't care. So just do it alphabetically and put your name first. Where maybe 10 years ago, I would have been like, well, maybe, I don't know. I was different. I was still competitive and I was different and I was trying to protect my space. So who knows?
I'm thinking about that a lot lately as I work into the, I know I'm a few years younger than you, but I feel like I'm kind of maybe a bit preemptively, and maybe I'll regret it in terms of my what I'm committing to things. But I
really am loving the relationships and the genuine support and wanting people to do well and wanting, like you said, not being concerned with ego and like, how does this help me? And it just makes me wonder, like, could I have possibly viewed things that way in my past? I don't think I could have. Like we said, like you're kind of young and you're trying to get the most out of the opportunities that you have, but at the same time, I am really loving the way the world feels when you actually genuinely want people to succeed, everyone around you, even if it means that you yourself are like maybe missing out on things or not getting things that you otherwise would have. And it really feels like you have got to that place in your life as well. Yeah, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Yeah, and look, the first time I would watch races that I couldn't run at, I felt like happy for the people that were running, but I still felt like a pang of jealousy and like, what does this mean? I'm not a part of it anymore. Do I have any value anymore? I think over time I've realized like, hey, I'm still the same person, and some people will see value in that and some people won't, but like, what does that even mean? You know, like I still love the sport. I still want to be around people, and what does it matter that someone else might think I need to go away because I'm not fast anymore or whatever it is? I think knowing that I'm never going to race again has really relieved me of any sort of like, and because I was jealous for a long time. I was happy for people, but also jealous. I think that really being comfortable and okay with the fact that I'll never race again has really helped me to just become a really big fan of the sport and of what other people, specifically women, are doing. But there's a growth that happens to get to that place. And I don't think I was a bad person when I was in my early 30s and I was trying to, make it as a professional athlete and really in my own world. I don't think that was bad. I just think now I'm in a totally different place in life. And now I get to cheer people on that I used to be like, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Do you think your dystonia has made it in some ways while you wouldn't wish that upon yourself, you wouldn't wish it on anyone, has made it easier to have that kind of clean break rather than it like slowly being pulled away from you?
I think that's a great question. And I think the answer is probably yes. Because I did struggle from 2016 to 2018. I struggled so much because I just felt like I needed to have one last good race. And then even after that, when I started to just meet my body, like be like, okay, well, I'm not that athlete anymore. I still felt like I needed to be racing, whether it was on the trails or something. I felt like, to continue to be in this arena, I still need to be doing something. Maybe it's not winning races, but I'm trying new adventures, or I'm doing this and that, and I'm redefining what success looks like, all that kind of blah, 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 which is how I felt. But I think with the dystonia diagnosis, it's very clear that I cannot perform like I used to. I never will. And in a weird way, even though it's awful, it has allowed me to say, okay, like I'm not going to be able to go run that 50 miler I hope to run. I'm not going to be able to go run Fifth Avenue mile like I had hoped. And there's no amount of training or wanting or stressing about it that could make that happen. It's just not going to happen. And was a grieving process through that too. But in a weird way, it's like, okay, now I can just truly enjoy the sport where I'm at, instead of thinking like, well, should I be training for this? Or should I be trying to make a master's team? Or should I, I think I'd be interested in your thoughts. Like as a competitive athlete, like I think I'll like, Colt is coached by Melody Fairchild. That's his club coach. And she's, she races still, and she's hoping to make the world masters cross country team. And I'm thinking like, well, should I be doing that? Should I be doing that and proving that I still love the sport so much? And in a weird way, I'm like, well, I can't. So it's like, I can't do that. And so it's allowed me to stop thinking about that all the time. And this is like, I think Melody sincerely loves doing all that stuff, but I'm not sure that I was loving it or if I felt like I had to.
Thank you to AG1 for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day. It is the one ritual I'm able to keep. I wake up, I go downstairs, I drink my AG1 and I get on with my day. I gave AG1 a try because I was finding it hard to get all those nutritional pieces that I was being told to get in one place. I was trying to take care of my body. I was trying to take care of my health, but I didn't want to take 300 different supplements. And AG1 had 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients all in one place. I drink AG1 first thing when I wake up in the morning. Before I do anything else, it is the first thing I do, and it makes me feel great. It is enough calories for me to run on if I want to go straight out the door, or also it's just giving my body a good jump start to the day. I really am loving it. And if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. You will not regret it. It is a wonderful product. I have been using it for many years now and absolutely loving it. I know with every daily serving, I'm setting myself up for success, and you will too. Go to drinkag1.com/Tina.
I mean, I'm in a bit of a weird spot right now because I'm kind of like looking over the edge again and like deciding if I want to jump off or not. And so I have had this last 6 years of getting to this place where I actually didn't care. Like when I ran Maui as a guide last year and I ran 5:48, having a 5:48 next to my name was something that like in the past would have really stressed me out. Like that is going to be up there forever. But now I finally reached a point where I'm like, I did that. I did it as a guide, but I don't care if someone knows that or not. So yeah, I'm in a bit of a different spot in terms of that I had that success in my ultra. And now I'm like, do I want to go back there? Do I want to risk all that I just did, all that growth I did to potentially jump back into the same traps again? But it does make me
maybe
wonder.
You wouldn't. Maybe you'd see it from a different angle because you're just at a different place, right?
That's what I'm hoping. And I do feel that way. And I talked actually to Mario. I was talking to Mario Freely a few weeks ago about this because he's very much in the same stage of his life, not with ultras. He's doing more short stuff. But, being at that place where I was saying to him about how 3x3 mile or 2x5 mile workouts I just can't think of anything worse to want to do right now than that. And so he was like, so don't do it then. And having that freedom to be able to be like, do what you want to do. And yes, that might be some hard days, but maybe that hard day is being like, that hill. Yeah, I think I'm going to run up that 10 times. Okay, I'll do that. Instead of it being like, all right, what's on the sheet? Yeah, 2x4 mile, 1x2 mile. Like, ugh. And so I hope that I am in a different place. But it is kind of scary because, as you know, once you start to have that success, you want more. And so I don't know if I can commit to this in any capacity without getting sucked into the like, well, if I'm giving up this for that, then I'd better get the result for that. And going into these races thinking, well, I've sacrificed for this, so I'd better get the most out of it, which then immediately puts me back in that channel of results. So yeah, I'm in a slightly different place, but I will say after I had Bailey and I came back to that first race postpartum, and I ran Boston and I just blew up and hated every second of it. That was definitely a case of like doing it because I felt I needed to do it, not because I actually wanted to do it. And that was miserable. And I don't want anything to feel like that again. So yeah, I have thought about that with you. And then with that, like I've wondered with you, like I've heard you saying, I can't remember where, but a few places about like, you just love running and that's why you keep doing it. And you keep having the injections you have, was it once or twice a year, right?
4 times a year. Yeah.
4 times a year. And, like you have all these treatments and things you have to do to be able to keep running. But I'm assuming there also must be a voice in there somewhere that says to you, like, is this worth it? And like, is there something else, or does that not even enter your mind?
Not really. I have other people that ask me that. So essentially I get Botox 4 times a year for my dystonia. And then, I get my knee injected twice a year and drained 2 to 4 times a year, depending on how swollen it is. The thing is, I do really love it. And like when you were saying, oh, look at that hill, I'm going to run up it 10 times. That's where I'm at. Like if I catch a good day where I feel really steady, that's what I'll do. I mean, I did that. I guess it was on Saturday. I went and just was out running here. We're out at our cabin and I was running this 5-mile loop. I'm not wearing a GPS because I know how far everything is, and nothing like that matters to me anymore. And I came down the big hill and I used to do hill repeats on it, and I was having a good day and I knew I was less than 2 miles back to the cabin. So even if it's a bad day, it's not that far of a walk. And so I just started running up the hill as hard as I could. And I did it 5 times. And then I was like, I'm tired. And then I jogged back. And again, I don't know that I could get to that place without knowing for sure that competition is put to bed. It is for me sort of like this healing thought of like, well, I can't compete. But I really just love it. And I have days where it's bad and I'm like, this is annoying. And I just want to go for a 4 or 5 mile run. But I also, it's been really freeing from someone who has judged my worth on my times and workouts since I was 12 years old. I was talking to Frank Lara, he runs for Ultra, and I was at an Ultra event and I was like, oh yeah, I did like 1 minute pushes the other day. And he was like, well, how fast were you going? I'm like, I have no idea. Because I was just running a loop that I know, and I just would look down at the time and I'd say, I'm going to run hard for a minute. And then 3 minutes later, I go, I'm going to run hard for another bit. But I had no concept of pace. And so it's funny to me because even me talking about this out loud 3 years ago, I would have been like, that is not me. Someone is in my body. I would never think that way. But that's where I've landed. And to me, it's worth it to get my knee drained. To me, it's worth it to try to treat the dystonia because I'm still having fun. But it's funny, like when I tell someone like, oh, I did a workout today, and they're like, well, what'd you do? And I'm like, well, I don't really know. I just was feeling good. So I pushed for a minute. Yeah.
Yes. And that's very much the stage I'm in. But I like that, to be able to like, that's truly listening to your body, isn't it? And that's like, it's freeing. You said about Frank, I was talking to Ryan Montgomery the other day and he was saying, well, what's your zone something? I was like, I don't even know what you're saying. And 2, I have literally no idea. And he was like, but you must have. And I'm like, no, literally no idea. Like this is, I want to stay this way. I don't want to know what my zone something or other is. I just want to like do what my body feels like doing. And it's been very freeing to do that. And it is, but I don't think, and I'd love your thoughts here, I don't feel like that's something you can force. Like I don't think someone listening to this could be like, I want to do that. Because you kind of have to get to a place where you just get there on your own. And it's, I don't know, I can't figure out how I got here, but I like it here and I want to stay. And I'd imagine all the like stats people are like, ew, why would you want to run that way? But that's for me, it feels much more joyful here, at least for now.
Yeah. I don't think you can just go there just because you want to, right? Like I did have to kind of realize that any little bit of a dream of running a 50 miler or running another fast mile, like I had to kind of accept that just isn't in my future. And then I can get really depressed because I'm like, okay, well then what? Like I'm not even halfway through my life, I hope. And I'm already giving up, whatever. Like you start to think these dark thoughts, but then I just think, hey, I'm here and I'm happy and I can still enjoy it in a totally different way. And that part of my life is over. And that doesn't mean it's not hard. There's times where it's hard and I miss it, but I'm not going to sit around for the rest of my life missing it. Like there's still so much living to be done. But for me, it did take a long time to get to this place where, running 5 times up the hill by the minuet is fun, without knowing exactly how far I'm going or how fast I'm going. Like that, even 3 years ago, I would have been like, well, at least find out how far it was, but I really run a lot on time now. And I run with my dogs a lot now. Like I just, people will say, well, I don't want to run with you. You're way too fast. And I'm like, trust me, you could run with me. And that's okay. And it's just sort of redefined to me, what does running need to be? What does success look like? For me, it's successful to go out and have a day where I feel comfortable in my body and I don't feel like I'm slipping and I feel like I'm in control. And maybe it's only a 20-minute run, but it makes me feel like I accomplished something. It makes me feel in tune with myself. And I mean, because you used to train like crazy too. I used to run 135 miles a week, and every thought I had during the day was about my training. It's like, should I be talking to Tina right now? Or should I be resting? Should I have my feet up? Should I be eating that? Should I be napping? And, like those thoughts stick around for a long time because it's so much of who you are and what you've trained to do. And it's like indoctrinated in you. And so it's not easy to get rid of those thoughts, like to just be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Like, even though none of that stuff applies to my life anymore, it's still this, I still have thoughts here and there where I'm like, well, should I be doing this? And I'm like, well, I mean, what does it matter? But it's hard to get there. It's not so easy as just like, I just decided to embrace who I am now. It was a long process to get here.
Yeah, for sure. You just reminded me that a few times recently I've been in the middle of the day and I'm like, did I run today? Did I? Yeah, I think I did. Because I just finish it and then I get on with my day. Whereas before, like you said, it was like everything you were thinking about all day long. So now I laugh whenever I do that. I'm like, did I run? Yeah, I did run. That's why I'm thirsty. So yeah. Okay. So I want to shift over to the book, which I did blast through. The Longest Race, a New York Times bestseller. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've been asked already about that phone call, but when did you let yourself believe that could be happening in that first week, or even before that? Or were you just like, I can't even allow myself to think that way? Because at that point, Lauren's book had already been on the list. So did that give you a well, maybe it could, or you just avoided that altogether?
No, because Lauren's book hit the list, I was like, do you think this book could hit the list? My publisher. And he was like, look, there's no way to know. It's not even based on book sales. It's based on this formula that I don't really even understand. And he's like, but I think you have a good chance. But he kept saying like, it doesn't really matter. You're telling your story and that's what matters. And so Max was really awesome about that. But I was waiting to pick up my son from school, and he called and he was like, I just found out you hit the New York Times bestseller list. You're number 7 on ebook, on audio, and on hardcover. And so it was a good feeling of like, wow, people are really reading this. Also a little overwhelming because I don't know who's read it and who hasn't. And I'm not ashamed of anything that's in there, but you've read it. I'm really open in it there. So it's also interesting now when I meet people, I'm like, well, do they actually know more than they're letting on? Have they read it or not? But, it really wasn't like, people ask me how many copies I've sold. I have no idea, because that wasn't the point. The point was other people telling my story, and through therapy and everything I've gone through, like specifically, I'd say the last 5 years, like really trying to reclaim my own sense of self. The goal was for me to do that and for me to be able to move forward, telling my story in my own voice and what I experienced. And so that was the goal, and we accomplished that goal.
Yeah. Did you said, you've been talking about doing therapy for years. You just said the last 5 years. Did you do some preemptive therapy for prepping for that coming out, knowing that because of what you shared, because of the vulnerability you showed, because of speaking out as a sexual abuse, blanking on the word. It's not survivor. Just someone who has experienced sexual abuse, been, what you went through. There's always going to be people who are going to come out the other way and be like, oh, this is, make negative comments. Did you prep for that beforehand, or how did you go about those months coming, knowing that was coming? That must have been weighing on you, here it comes. And you had said to me, I think 2 weeks before, that the book was on, what was the word you used? Lockdown was essentially the word.
It was embargoed.
That's it. Yeah. So how did you prep for that, knowing that this was going to explode?
Yeah, so I've been working with a therapist that I really love. She helped me a lot with dealing with specifically the sexual assault and what that feels like and looks like later in life when you're finally admitting that it happened to you. And so basically, like, I worked with her, and then last summer I took a break because I was like, I just need a break. I'm in my happy place. I'm in Minnesota. And then we were just touching base. And as it came closer to the book launch, I started to get really nervous, and I was just back in touch with her, but I wasn't necessarily seeing her full time as a client like I have been the last few years before that. And I had told her like that I'm going to wait and see how I feel when it comes out, and like we had appointments set aside if I needed it. But the weirdest thing happened, which is that the night before the release, I couldn't sleep. I was really stressed out. I was like, why do I do this stuff to myself? Like, why am I doing this? But I woke up the next day and I just felt so calm. And I'm telling you, like, I feel so much lighter than I have felt in my life. I feel so much calmer. This is like just a weird thing, but like I started grinding my teeth in 2006, and I had to, like, I wear a mouth guard, and I stopped grinding my teeth the day after the book came out. And so I have just touched base with her because honestly, I feel like she prepped me so well, but really it was the release. It was like the big final release of all of this work and all of these years of shame and worrying. It's just, it's out there, and I'm not ashamed anymore, and I'm not worried anymore. And I mean, I love my therapist, and I'm sure that there will be times where I need to see her again. But so far I have felt really just so at peace. It's not like I feel happy about the book, but I just feel so at peace. And I think a lot of that is credited to her prepping me and helping me truly work through a lot of the things that I had dealt with.
Hi friends, if you follow me on social media, you would have seen that I recently recorded the audiobook for Becoming a Sustainable Runner. It was a whole weekend, 16 hours of recording that I did, but I'm really excited that Becoming a Sustainable Runner is going to be on Audible for those of you who are audio listeners. But for those of you who are hardcover physical copies, that's me, book readers, this is the time to order. Pre-order. That is the best thing you can do to support me and to support Zoe at this time. Becoming a Sustainable Runner is a practical guide for runners of all abilities and backgrounds. And if you want to take meaningful action to protect our planet through your love of the sport, we're going to bring together personal stories, research, expert input. We're going to show you how you as an individual runner can better support your endurance journey and how you can extend those lessons into meaningful environmental action. We made this book approachable. It's got training tips and takeaway for beginner runners, for elite runners. We're going to show you how to use your own practice in a sustainable way, and it's going to serve as a useful guide for those of you wanting to take meaningful and effective action on climate justice. It's going to not only show you how to do things, but why. And if you go to becomingasustablerunner.com, there are links to all your favorite places to go get a copy of the book: Target, Amazon, and that's Amazon worldwide, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, Waterstones, and Human Kinetics. And when you are there, you will see many of the quotes are testimonials, including one from Malcolm Gladwell, Reshma Saujani, Simranjit Singh, and many more. But while you are there, if you put in your name and email, you can also get our Beyond Running Sustainability tips that's going to give you 50 ways you can be a more sustainable runner in terms of individually, as a community, and planetary. So go to becomingasustablerunner.com. That's becomingasustablerunner.com to check out more.
Do you feel it was, you maybe did most of the work in terms of that prepping of what you were going to be saying, the letting go, even though the release was obviously the moment it went out into the world? Was it the talking to Mary, the getting it off your chest, the thinking through it, the processing? Like, I've heard Lauren talking about this as well, or maybe I can't remember, maybe it was even with me, in terms of like, that is the part that really like wrecks you, but also the part that is the most freeing, because all these things that you've like stuffed away, you finally like bring out. And like you said about grinding your teeth, Was it the process of writing it? Or was it like the completed product of like, okay, it's all out there?
I think the process was important to heal as a human because it really forced me to open up about stuff, and it really forced me to revisit stuff. And not all that was in the book. I mean, the book's only 200 and some pages, right? Like I thought like if it was up to me, it would be like 30,000 pages long because I think all these things matter. But so I think it was a lot of the process of like revisiting things, even things that I didn't even think bothered me, and then talking about them with Mary. And then, I mean, Mary would tell you there were days where we talked to each other at least twice a week. And there were days where she'd call and I would just cry the whole time. And she would just listen. And we weren't getting any work done, but that also was the point where I was telling myself, like, I have to deal with this. Like, I have not dealt with this. Like, I think that because I'm an athlete, because I'm good at compartmentalizing, that this isn't affecting me, but this is really affecting me. And that's when I went from using like a sports psychologist to a psychologist. Just, I have to really deal with all of this. So the book was a gift in the fact that even though that was really painful, the process of writing it really was what finally got me to, like, for years, my husband would be like, you need to see someone else. You need to talk about, I'd be like, no, I'm fine. But the book process of it itself is what healed me. And I think just waking up on that day, knowing like, I'm surviving, I'm happy, it's out there, and it doesn't change my happiness or where I am at in my life. That was like the final letting go. I've let go of so much anger, Tina. It's crazy. I'm just like, I'm tired of being angry. It's exhausting. And I feel like it caused me so much stress over the years. And now I just feel like, hey, I said my piece. And if anyone has a question, they can read the book, and I'm moving on. There's a lot more life to live.
Talk about the process of doing it with Mary. I mean, most people listening aren't going to have, maybe they write out their thoughts, maybe they journal. What does it mean to have someone who can write, like take these thoughts of yours? And I don't know, maybe they weren't, but for me, I would imagine it would be like a incoherent ramble of random directions and stories and things all tangled up in a big ball, and being able to take it and pull it into these sentences that make sense and are clear and eloquent. And what was that process like of like, I'm assuming there's many moments where she just explained things better than you could even explain it yourself. So what was that process like, having someone do that like with you?
Yeah. So we started with just hours and hours on the phone with her recording, because we started it during COVID. So we couldn't physically be together. And then I would send her my old journals, emails, transcripts, and she would read that. And then I'm trying to think, we started in the fall of 2019. But I can't remember when the first pages were put to paper. But the one thing I'll say about Mary is that she was so awesome with me. Anytime I would say like, I don't like that. I would never say that. She would be like, great, tell me more. Or I'd say, there's this one little nitpicky thing. It's just nitpicky. And she'd go, no, it's not. I want to hear. And so she really opened it up that I could be super honest with her. And so the first few chapters I hated, and we totally rewrote them. And then so she would essentially write a chapter, send it to me. I would correct it like on the document. And then we would talk it through for like 2 hours. Why I didn't like it, what needs to be changed. And then we would do that again. And as we got further in the book, there was less and less corrections, right? Because she was really learning my voice and how I explain things. But, there was like a million revisions. So it was like, we would go to one chapter, clean it up, fix it, then go to the next. But then at the end, when you do have the book, first of all, the book is like twice as long as it is now. Now we're trying to edit things out. And then we're going back and I'm like, well, now that I know you a little bit better and I'm not worried about hurting your feelings, like this has to be changed too. And so it was a really, really long process, but not one time was she ever like, you're killing me, or I don't want to change that. Or, she was always like, okay. So that just, we had this sense of trust. And then once COVID was in the back window a little bit, she was able to come and stay with us. And we just really bonded as friends in that moment. Like, obviously I trusted her. I had spilled my guts to her, but we had never hung out, you know? So that was a really important trip. Yeah, right. Like, she knows all my deepest, darkest secrets and my biggest fears, but I've never physically met her. And so when she was able to come out, that was amazing, because it was like, oh, well, now I feel like she's a good friend of mine. And that was really, I already trusted her, but that just like sealed it forever.
Did you, when you were with her, I imagine that's really hard to, like, you have this enough with your like presence online of, and I have this to an extent too, of where people know so much about you. And to her, with her, this is such an extreme. Did you feel like, please tell me everything about you, or like, tell me something so it doesn't feel so one-sided? Like, how did that friendship go from there? Did you spend the next, since the book, been like, tell me your, I don't know, like, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, her dad went through some health stuff while we were writing the book, and she had to cancel a couple days. And just what you're saying, in that moment, I was like, I don't know anything about Mary. Like, I actually don't know her. I don't know anything about her family life. And so that was good, because it wasn't good, but her dad's okay. But it was like a window for us to be able to talk about her. And she is so wildly accomplished. Like, when I first talked to her, I knew that she had written at the Times, and I knew that she was a best-selling author, but I didn't realize that she has, you know, produced all of these incredible documentaries, that she has reported on some of the biggest sports scandals, that she is a regular on MSN. Like, I didn't know any of that. And so getting to know her and just how accomplished she is like, it's pretty wild how accomplished she is. Yeah. And I didn't know any of that. I was just like, I like your vibe. Will you write my book with me? You know? And I had talked to not more than a few different co-authors, and I liked everyone that I talked to, but there was something about her that was like a little gritty. And of course, you've read the book, so you know that when I first called her, she was going to just politely tell me no. But then that short conversation turned into a long conversation. There was something about her. She grew up in Eugene. Her family are runners. I ran against her cousin at Foot Locker Nationals when I was high school. Like, she understood the game. And she was a little gritty. I mean, her whole thing was like, we tell it all, or I don't want to be a part of it. And I get to see everything, or I don't want to be a part of it. And so she kind of laid those rules from the beginning, which scared me a little bit, but also made me feel like, oh, she's in it deep. Like, she wants to really do this justice. She doesn't want to like paint some pretty picture. She wants to like get into it all. So, yeah, I just have learned more and more that she is 1,000 times more impressive than I'll ever be. Honestly, she is so accomplished.
I love that. And I love that you said that there was a vibe about her, but clearly there's a vibe about you, because of what you said, that she was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. But then she got on the phone with you and she was like, oh, I like her. So it's kind of funny that was what did it, you know? And I really believe in like energies within people. Like there's something special there that you feel with people, and it's magic. So I love hearing that. I want to ask you about, there's one other thing I've been dying to know with you. Okay. So Colt has been successful in his running to this point, but I've been just so wondering with you, having 2 kids, having people already saying, oh, your kid's going to be runners, having them already take interest in it. And my older one is 5. How are you juggling this? Like, this has got to be such a tug of war in like how much support is too much. How much do I say? How much do I not? Like, I would love to hear, if you're comfortable sharing, like what is going on in your head when he's doing these races.
It's so hard, Tina, because first of all, he never wanted to run. He found it annoying that people would ask him. And 2 falls ago, so almost 2 years ago, his friend wanted to try cross country. I was looking for clubs in Boulder. I found one that Melody Fairchild coached. I called her and was like, my son is interested in running. I was like so rude. Like, I love her, but I like verbally diarrheaed all over her. I was like, my son's interested in running. I do not want him running more than twice a week. I never want him running farther than 4, maybe 5 miles. I'm so scared this is going to ruin the sport for him. And she was just kind of like, oh, okay, you know? And she was like, well, why don't you let him come for a week or 2? And then if you can decide if it's like good or not. So the very first day he didn't want to go. He was only going for his friend. And when I went to pick him up, his friend was miserable and then Colt's cheeks were so red. And he was like, that was the best. Like he just loved it from the get-go. And so he's been running for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years this fall since he joined a team. But I still am really strict about mileage. I'm still really strict about how many days he can run. And what's hard is that I see him, he's successful in his own little bubble, but like step outside the small community we're in. And like he, you know, we took him, his team, they qualified for the national championships and we took them. I mean, Colt, I think he got 180th or something. I don't remember. And so that's where it's difficult because I'm like, I know I could run him more and he could be better, but I'm like, if he really wants to pursue this in college and beyond, potentially he's 12, he cannot be running like that right now. So that's where it's hard for me because selfishly I want to run him so he can win stuff. But then I'm like, I think big picture and I'm terrified. And I'm like, I don't want you to run 2 days a week is plenty. And that's still all that he's allowed to run. So, and even when I'm cheering, like, it's so weird because he had set this goal to win the 6th grade district mile. And this goal stressed me out to no end because it's one thing to try to improve your time a little bit over the course of the season, but to say you want to win something, as you know, you don't have control what anyone else does. And so the day of the district meet, I was shaking. Okay, this is a 6th grade Boulder district meet, 15 schools, 6th graders. Okay. I'm shaking so
what
bad.
Were you shaking about?
I'm so nervous for him. I was just like, please let him be happy. Okay. Please. Yes. So nervous for him. Please let him run well. Please let him be happy. You know, no matter what place he gets, let him be happy. And so the race starts and this kid goes out, he's way out in front. And I'm like, okay, well, he's running great. He's going to get second. That's fine. And anyway, he ends up winning. And I'm like, I'm so nervous. I can't even enjoy it or anything like that. And I'm kind of shocked by my reaction because I've seen him run probably a dozen, maybe if not 20 races at this point. But like knowing that he wanted that victory, it just stressed me out. And we talk so much about process and your own journey and not everyone's the same. And, you know, that's why place goals are hard, right? Because you can't control what anyone else does. But I was texting my mom and I was like, I don't know how you did this. I want to barf. I'm miserable. And my mom was like, yeah, and you did it for 30 some years, you know? So it's been interesting. And, you know, I've learned like right before a race, he doesn't want to hear from me and that's fine. And, you know, I am interested if he pursues it in high school. I would love to be an assistant coach and help a little bit. But I also, you know, Adam and I really feel strongly like no one in Adam's family was a runner. No one. In my family, my grandpa was, but he wasn't a racer. And so we each got to have it be our own. And we just want to make sure that he's able to have it be his own process and his own journey. And so that's a really long way of saying like, it's really stressful. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's
it's
what
amazing
I wanted you to
see yeah, it's like amazing to see your child love something you love, but it's also extremely stressful because I don't want to mess it up for him. I want him to love it for all the right reasons. I want him to be in his mid 40s like me and still going out there and enjoying it. So it's really stressful. And as being a competitive athlete like you are, it's like you have to remove yourself from the competition side of it a lot. You have to be like, hey, whatever happens, happens. And I don't know, it's tough. It's really tough. It's beautiful, but tough.
Yeah. Do you talk to him about pressure that other people, I would imagine there's so many other people saying to him about like, oh, you're going to be an Olympian, you're going to do this. Like, do you talk to him about that?
Yeah. He had a big district meet for his middle school in September, which my mom came out to watch. And he was really upset after. He was like really hard on himself. I can't remember what place he got. The original goal was top 20 and he was top 20, but he was still disappointed. And it was actually kind of cute from his eyes. He goes, I was like, honey, this is supposed to be fun. If this isn't fun, we shouldn't do it. Like, you're way too young. And he was like, I was like, do you feel like dad and I are putting pressure on you? He was like, no, I don't feel like that. But everybody knows you're both national champions from Colorado and all Americans.
Yeah.
But what made me giggle inside, I was like, we're Olympians, but he was like talking about that at the University of Colorado. I'm like, oh, okay. But he is well aware, right? He's well aware. And people say stuff and they don't mean to be mean, but he internalizes all that. And he is like me. He's a little more sensitive and he thinks about things and he thinks about what other people think. And so, yeah, it's this very I feel like it's this very delicate dance of like encouraging him, but not talking about it too much, supporting him, but not yelling splits at him. Like I take splits just because he wanted to break a 5:40 in the mile. And so I'll like take splits, but he doesn't want to hear me tell him anything about pace or anything like that. And so it's funny because when I cheer for him, I literally am like, I love you. And I can't help it.
I love you no matter
I'm like,
what.
I love you. I'm like, you look so good. I love you. I'm so proud. It's like, I cheer so weird, but it is just like purity coming through. So that would be interesting for you because you hear other parents like yelling a little harder or giving advice where I just like gush how much I love him when he's running. And people on Twitter are like, that's embarrassing. I'm like, I know. And I tell myself, don't say I love you. Don't say that. And it just comes out.
I feel like sometimes I overcorrect with Bailey is 5 and sometimes she'll be like, Mommy, can we go for a run? And she wants to go for a run with me, which is usually like, I don't know, quarter of a mile, half a mile. And but she'll say things like about winning and I'm like, well, it's not actually about winning, it's about enjoying yourself. And then like she'll say to me, but you won your race. And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't about winning, it was about enjoy. Like I feel like sometimes I'm overcorrecting to where my kids are going to have like no drive whatsoever because I'll be like, well, yeah, I don't really need to do any of this because it's just about having fun anyway. And so I'm interested to see how mine come out on the other end because I feel like because I put so much pressure on myself, I'm like trying to push them the other direction. So they're like, if you lie on the couch and you just sleep all day, I will still love you the same. And they're just not going to do anything.
No, it'll still come out. It'll still come out. Look, I'm like you. I'm always telling Colt, you are your own person. You are your own journey. No one has the same experiences as you. No one, and like a lot of his friends are already taller and are going through puberty. And I'm like, you can't compare yourself to anyone else. They can't compare all that matters is that you're having fun and that you're doing the best that you can do. But if they have a little competitive drive, it'll come out. And we've seen that with him. But I've also seen that where it makes me nervous because he's like hard on himself. And I'm like, you're way too young to be hard on yourself. And so that's when we have these big conversations about experiencing your own journey, realizing when you've made your own progress. I actually think you'll do great because that's better than hearing, yeah, you can be as fast as you want. Yeah, you can beat whoever you want. I mean, that's just not realistic. But that's a lot of parents say that because they're just trying to encourage their kids. But I think I'm overly corrective as well. I feel like Colt's going to be like, well, I had fun and I enjoyed my journey. And I'm like, yay, you did it. But he still has his little goals that come out that I'm like, wait, what? You're setting a goal? Wait, why? You didn't talk to me about that. It still comes out.
Yeah. I could see that. Bailey said to me a few weeks ago, she was like, I can run faster than all the boys in my class, but I just don't because I don't want to bump into anyone on the playground, but I know I can. I'm like, like, where did you even come up with that? But okay.
I love that. That's awesome.
I know, it's like confidence. Okay. Is there anything else that has been on your mind? You've obviously got your podcast, so you get to what's the term? Like verbal vomit the whatever is on your mind on your own podcast now. But is there anything that that we've kind of covered that you didn't get a chance to finish what you were saying or any other thoughts?
Oh gosh, not really. I don't know. Yeah. It's funny.
We went over 4 things. So.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's funny how like we started with like my own journey, right? And the lessons that we're trying to instill in our kids, I'm still learning. And so I think that's also a good reminder as a parent of like, it's ongoing, right? Like we started all of this off with talking about my own running and what it means and the difficulty of separating myself from a competitive athlete. And so it's constantly reminding me that life is, I say it to Colt all the time. It's a long journey, but it really truly is. And you're always evolving at some stage, no matter what age you are.
So true. Well, thank you, my friend, for joining me back again. I, as always, loved our conversation, and I'll put lots of links in the show notes for the book, as if anyone doesn't have it already, which I'm sure most people do, for the podcast, and just to go follow along with you. But thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me back.
The Running for Real podcast and everything we do here at Running for Real would not be possible if it wasn't for the Running for Real team. While I am the person who you hear from most often and maybe the face of the brand, the rest of our team are such critical pieces of what we do. And without them, I think I'd just be running around in circles with ideas. So I want to take a moment to thank our team. To Jeremy Nessel, who's been with me since the very beginning. Kat McKay, Sally Pontarelli, Kelsey Wang, Sandy Gutierrez, Louise Murphy, Andrew Basola, Alexandria Will, and Maria Vargas. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you give to Running for Real and our community. I appreciate you, and I'm so thankful for having you as a part of the team. I always love my conversations with that friend. I hope you enjoyed that one too. I really loved catching up with her and just going in depth into those areas. Those are things that I had been wondering, and I'm sure many of you had been too. I hope you enjoyed that. You should definitely go check out her podcast with Des if you've not already, and order yourself a copy of her book. I want to remind you to go to the links in the show notes, which you can find at runningforreal.com/episode 355. And there you can also find links to our sponsors for today. And I want to encourage you to go check them out too. The first being Dry Seats. You heard me talk about the sweat-proof seat covers that I have in my car from Dry Seats. You can use code R4R20 for 20% off your first order. You can also go to drinkag1.com/Tina to get a special offer there. Again, all links will be in the show notes, as well as a link to pre-order yourself a copy of Becoming a Sustainable Runner, or you can go to becomingaSustainableRunner.com. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on Monday for a Together Run, on Wednesday for a Real Episode, and we'll be back next Friday with another one of these. Thanks for listening.